Alex slowly searched for sticks and branches to keep his fire going. He had to make sure it was big enough and hot enough to cook his food, but not so big and so hot that he'd give his position away. He was just happy he could have some alone time without the threat of death. He had the high ground at the top of this mountain, and he smartly surrounded his temporary camp with leaves, branches, and other things he could find that would make noise if stepped on. He looked across the landscape. He admired the extraordinary view. It was a spectacle he had never experienced before, a beautiful one at that. He was shocked he was enjoying the view given the circumstances, but sitting there was calming him down. He would need to feel refreshed for the upcoming hours. Alec ate his meal, found a nice, warm, and isolated resting spot, extinguished the fire, and went to sleep. BK watched as the action had gotten boring. That happens during the night. We were getting to that point of the night. We were getting to that point of night one where participants would hide, sleep, receive supplies from unknown sponsors, and think about their next move. He was hoping there would be secret alliances and ambushes during the first night, but with the high intensity of the first few hours, he understood why there wasn't much action. He pulled up his arena map, seeing where everyone was. He took out a notepad to write notes down about the whereabouts of his participants. He noticed most people were separated, but there were four different instances where two participants were in close proximity to each other. He wrote their names down, started recording the cameras from those groups, and went to bed. BK woke up earlier than he felt like he should, but later than he wanted. He didn't want to miss any of the action. He quickly got dressed and tiredly headed to the booth. Good morning, Ricardo. What's happening currently? Ricardo was currently screening the cams, seeing Ian and Jacob both picking flowers in two separate areas of the map. Not much, boss, as you can tell. Sure. Looks like not much has happened since I went to bed last night. Actually, sir, Ricardo replied, see for yourself. Twice he had cowered, but twice he was still alive. Ian had been scared off by Jess and Grace, two of the least threatening people in this game, he thought. Clearly, he thought wrong. He was scared. He was defenseless. And he was an easy target. Ian stumbled upon what looked to be a custom-built shelter, but he couldn't figure out if it was currently being used. He was a dead man if he walked in, but after hearing thunder and rain in the distance, he was a dead man without shelter. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door that was made of tree trunk. LB darted awake. He was unable to grab a weapon from the cornucopia due to little Miss Texas firing an arrow past his ear. He didn't know what to do. Is anyone there? He heard. I swear I'm no threat. I was hoping I could shelter with you before the storm hits. Ian sat there and waited for a minute or so. He was going to wait as long as he could before he made a move to enter. LB cracked open the door just enough to see who was knocking, but not enough to reveal himself to the intruder. Prove it. Ian showed him every possible nook and cranny on his body, proving he was telling the truth. Can I come in now? Ian asked. LB hesitated. He sat there just watching him, wondering if Ian was going to do anything suspicious. Ian, patiently waiting, saw LB open the door. Then he quickly got under the cover before the rain came down on their position. The two of them gathered inside the shelter. Ian sat there awkwardly as LB closed the tree trunk door. I want to say thank you for trusting me enough to let me in, Ian finally said. Don't mention it, LB responded. I know you'd do the same thing for me if the roles were reversed. I can't promise an alliance, however. No, I completely understand, but I owe you one. So you can count on me to repay the debt. And I guess we have a temporary mini alliance, LB reassured. Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to hit the hay, Ian said. LB didn't stop him. He watched as Ian took a bed rest and went to sleep. It would be so easy right now to just kill him. Nobody would know. And it would increase his chances of his own survival. But he had nothing to kill him with. He could choke him or poison him, but Ian owed him a debt, and LB thought it was a sincere offer. So he thought he'd keep him alive for a bit longer. The most important information LB had was that he was also defenseless. He could go to sleep and easily never wake up again. LB was smarter than that. He kept that information in his hip pocket and didn't plan on telling Ian anytime soon. Ian, for lack of a better term, was LB's puppet for the immediate future, and more importantly, his shield. Julianne looked behind her as she ran, breathing heavily. She remembered seeing a huge scuffle, but she didn't have enough time to see who it was. She didn't care. She got the hell out of there. She was so concerned about what happened behind her that she didn't see the fallen tree in her path. Still running full speed, she ran into the tree and did a full flip. She tried to brace herself, but with such an awkward landing position, all she did was cause her more pain. She sat up after a few seconds and held in a scream of pain. Her right shoulder was definitely out of her socket. She got up, held her arm into place, and ran to find some help. She didn't know where it was going to come from, but she knew if she didn't find some and fast, she was doomed. Wait. Hold on. BK interrupted the feedback footage of Julian's camera. What happened over here? Sir, we're gonna get there eventually. No. I control the show. I want to see what happened on camera 5. BK scolded, pausing the footage of Julianne. The assistant producer gave a big sigh, put on the footage of camera 5, and hit the rewind button. Heather sat down just as the moon hit its highest peak. She had just refilled her water at the creek. She sat down rethinking what she had done the past day. She had almost killed 3 people. She was 1 arrow away from killing Alec. This wasn't who she was. This wasn't what she wanted her legacy to be. She sat there, thinking of all her options as she started a fire. I don't want to die, she thought. Then I'd have to kill someone, which I don't want to do either. She played her inner monologue with herself for the next few minutes when Frank approached the fire. Got any room for one more? Heather shrieked in terror. Frank had snuck up on her and she was unprepared. Her bow and arrow was away from the fire next to her water canteen. Relax, Heather. I'm not here to kill you. I was hoping for some warmth and company. Heather stared at him, waiting for her breaths to slow down and her adrenaline to low. Oh, okay. That's fine. Heather was determined she wasn't going to kill someone until she absolutely had to. Frank made himself nice and comfortable, almost too comfortable for Heather's liking. She may not be in the killing mood right now, but she sure as heck wasn't in the dying mood either. Every move she or Frank made put her on high alert. So what happened with you today? I saw Alec with a knife and bloody clothes, and I was like, nope, not today. Frank chuckled. Heather was halfway listening as she heard Alec's name. How she was this close to ending his life. But she didn't. And she didn't know how to feel about it. Hello, Earth to Heather, Frank practically shouted. Heather quickly snapped out of it. Shh. She shushed. Don't give away her position. Heather somehow found a way to yell and whisper at the same time, which in the moment impressed her very much. Oops, sorry, Frank whispered back. I'm going to look for more sticks. Would you mind helping me, Frank? No, of course not. Okay, cool. If we split up, we can gather more sticks and build the fire quickly. I'm getting cold. So you go over there and I'm going this way. Heather pointed as she walked away from the campsite. She went over to grab some water, but then decided she could wait. Finding sticks and getting that fire were more important. She put down her water, grabbed her bow and arrows, and began her search. Frank waited until he couldn't see Heather through the trees. He looked around to make sure he wasn't being watched. He approached Heather's canteen, propped against the tree, and put his canteen right next to it. He opened up a bag of smushed berries that he found to be poisonous and put a few drops into Heather's water. He quickly closed her canteen and propped it up against a tree before he left to go search for sticks. Heather arrived back at the campsite just as Frank did. Heather had significantly more sticks than him, but she assumed that the area she searched just had more sticks. She put most of hers in a pile with his and put the rest down, along with her bow and arrow next to her canteen by the tree. When she crouched down, she noticed his water was sitting there just like hers. That wasn't all that suspicious. She thought maybe it was just there. It was just the stress of the day getting to her mind. But as she looked again, she realized her canteen had been positioned slightly differently than it was before she went to search for sticks. She was definitely suspicious now. While Franken was adding sticks to the flames, Heather subtly switched the position of the canteens propped by the tree. There was some dry tinder near the tree, she was at, so she grabbed a handful, hopefully to increase the size and duration of the fire. 43 minutes and several failed attempts later, Heather and Frank had gotten a fire to light and stay burning. Heather laid down on the ground as her back and legs were dying after all the bending over and squatting. Frank wiped sweat off his forehead before grabbing a drink of water. He knew he needed to grab the correct canteen so he wouldn't die or look suspicious. He remembered his canteen was on the left side, so he picked it up, took a couple swigs, then sat right by the fire, allowing himself to warm up. Heather, still lying on her back, sat up. Why are we here? What's the purpose of this whole charade? I don't know. I just came here to survive, Frank responded, wiping more sweat from his forehead. This fire was really big and hotter than he anticipated. I mean, why did BK choose us to be here? What did he think this was going to be? A social experiment? Heather rambled on. Yeah, that's a good question. Frank struggled to get out. It was really hot now. Like, what was BK expecting when he put these games together? Did he think someone was just going to start killing he didn't expect? Did he think someone was going to die in an unexpected way? Maybe he wanted to see what alliances would be created, or maybe he wanted to see if I could tell that you poisoned my drink, or maybe he wanted to see some people push their moral limits in order to survive. Frank wasn't paying attention to whatever Heather was babbling about. Frank felt like he had a hard time breathing. Maybe he inhaled too much smoke, or maybe he ingested something today that he had an allergic reaction to. Or maybe, wait, what did Heather say? Hello, Earth to Frank. Frank looked up, continuing to search for oxygen. What? Was all he managed to get out. You know, this game brings out a different part of you. Maybe even many different parts of you. This game has brought out the super hyper-focused Heather. When I went to search for sticks, I came back with my water canteen in a slightly different angle than the last time I had touched it. I knew I couldn't trust you, so I took matters in my own hands. So I switched canteens. I'm sure you're understanding what I said now, Heather scolded. She didn't get mad often, but she wasn't surprised Frank made her feel this way. Frank struggled breathing, as now he was squirming on the ground, fighting and gasping for air. Heather watched as he struggled and squirmed. She grabbed her bow and arrow, loaded it up, and aimed it at the dying man. She looked him in the eye and pulled an arrow out of the bow and reloaded her quiver. You should have been more respectful of women. We're smarter than you men, you know. She smirked. She kicked his body, dumped both canteens onto the fire and put it out, and walked back down to the creek, where she could hear the last whimpers of Frank before he died. What have I done? BK questioned. I've taken my sweet intern Heather and made her a killing machine. I'm a monster. He looked around at his inferiors and laughed. I'm not a monster, I'm a genius. After he finished laughing, BK returned to her station and resumed watching the situation with Julianne. So all this stuff we're watching back was recorded. It's not live, right? Yes, sir. Thank you. What's your name? Dan? Dave? It's Dale, sir. Yes, Dale. Thank you. I know I've asked that question many times before, but I always forget. The footage, sir? Dale said. Oh, yes. Roll the footage. Julianne was able to find some cover, but it wasn't great cover. Her shoulder, still out of her socket, hurt like hell, and she would never have the force to put it back into place correctly. Suddenly, she saw Debbie walk over the horizon towards her position. Look, there's help. Debbie, please, it's Julianne. I need your help. Quick, please. Julianne pleaded. Debbie saw the wounded Julianne and ran over to tend to her. What happened? I dislocated my shoulder. Oh, don't you worry. I got you, Julianne. I would never let a fellow 942 crew member down. Julianne appreciated the kind words, but she didn't feel like they were good enough. She knew Debbie had genuine intentions, but Julianne didn't think geniusness was enough to win this game. Or she did. I messed up. She knew Debbie had genuine intentions, but Julianne didn't think genuineness was enough to win this game or even stay alive. Debbie took a look at the dislocated shoulder, examined it, pondered what was the best course of action in fixing the shoulder. I'm dead, Julianne. Stop. I'm so dead. Okay, babe, this is gonna hurt a little bit, but once I'm done, it should be working just fine and you should be up and running again. Just do it, Julianne demanded. Debbie took her arm and moved around to find the right spot. Julianne didn't feel anything yet, and then she felt everything. Debbie slammed Julianne's arm back into the socket, putting Julianne in some excruciating pain. She couldn't help but to scream. Keep quiet, Julianne, Debbie hushed. Now we have to hide. I was being followed when you called for me. Wait, you were being followed and you didn't tell me? Julianne said, exasperated. She was definitely going to die. Just shush and hide. Follow me, Debbie commanded, and Julianne followed. Out of the bushes came Connor. He had two of the more dominating kills of day one, and he clearly didn't care about taking some more people out. Damn it, I lost Debbie, Connor said. He wanted to be upset, but wasn't. Oh, well, she's no threat to me. She'll be an easier kill later in the game, Connor said, trying to convince himself it wasn't the end of the world that he lost her. He looked up and saw that the sun was beginning to set. He reached into his bag and pulled out some binoculars. He looked through them, searching for where his next destination might be. Then his view was blocked as Catherine had impeded his vision. Connor let go of the binoculars and noticed that Catherine was looking for something herself and hadn't noticed his presence yet. He reached into the bag to see if he had anything he could snipe her with. The best thing he could come up with is a knife. Connor didn't think there was a chance he could kill her from this distance, but he had taken some throwing knife classes before the beginning of the games and thought if he could get a tad closer, he could kill her. The sun was definitely setting now, and Connor knew this was his best chance to get rid of someone who he saw as a threat in this game. He quietly maneuvered his way through the bushes and trees and reduced the distance between him and his target. He got himself in a throwing position and waited until Catherine had stopped. He aimed his knife. He whispered, well, here goes nothing. Catherine never saw it coming. One moment she was picking berries off of bushes looking for food. The next she had a knife thrown from 50 yards away stuck in her skull. Connor walked over to retrieve the knife. He hovered over Catherine's dead body. I'm sorry. This wasn't personal. Connor took one last look at her before retreating back into the trees. Tell me you just saw that, Julianne exclaimed. Oh, I saw it all right, Debbie said. Let's go find some better shelter where interns aren't throwing knives at people. Julianne wasn't complaining. After you. So we're all cut up now? BK asked. Yep. And that actually happened a few moments ago. So we weren't that far behind, Dale said. Beautiful. Well, it's almost time to fire the cannons on day 2. Let's see if there's any last minute action. BK checked the map and noticed Tegan had been following Alec for some time. Is Tegan going to finish him off? He's got 10 minutes before the shots go off, he yelled excitedly. Alec thought about how he hadn't seen anyone since he last saw Grace. He was pleased. It gave him time to reset. What he didn't know is Tegan had been stalking his very movement for a couple of hours. Tegan still had arrows left in his crossbow. He made sure he was always a nice and safe distance away from him so that Alec wouldn't catch on. Alec sat down, sharpening the knife he still had with the rock. Tegan had a perfect opportunity to take Alec down. He knew he had to, as he felt that Alec was going to personally come after him after he killed Seb. Tegan got into a position, closed one eye, and aimed right at Alec's heart. Every scrape the knife made hit home with Alec. He thought it symbolized these games perfectly. With every motion to sharpen the knife, someone else was that much closer to killing Alec. He kept looking over his shoulder every now and then, but never stopped sharpening the knife. Every time the knife and rock connected, it made that same sound that is heard when metal hits and when metal and rock hit. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Boom. Alec threw down the knife and quickly threw down the rock and quickly re-wielded his knife, ready for a fight. He turned around and saw no one there. He then saw words appear in the sky. Frank's mud shot was shown, followed by Catherine's. It was just the tribute cannon shots. Alec took a deep sigh of relief. He took a second to capture his breath, grab his supplies, and move to a different place for the night. Tegan hadn't gotten the shot off before the cannons went off. He would be lying if he said they didn't scare him either. He was so worried about getting caught, he didn't notice Alec leave. Tegan shook his head in disbelief. He had an easy kill, and he just lost it. He knew that was going to cost him down the road. But for now, that moment was over. Tegan took a deep breath and focused on what was ahead. Tegan waited a while to make sure Alec wasn't coming back before he settled into Alec's campsite for the night.